Hasib Drabu, to you first. What would you want the Finance Commission to do as someone who has shepherded a state until recently?
S. Guhan once very famously said, "The Finance Commission is a dog that bites the states and barks at the center." Now, I just hope and pray that this Finance Commission does the opposite. I think we need to understand today's discussion in the context of yesterday's discussion. We are looking at new economy or new India, where yesterday the focus was on how states drive the economic growth now. It's in that context that we must understand the role of Finance Commission, but I think move also beyond Finance Commission. Center-state relations or center-state finances are not restricted only to Finance Commission. Finance Commission sets the framework. If you look at constitutionally speaking, there's nothing that one can disagree with what Mr. Singh said, because, and he, being a very seasoned bureaucrat, kept all his cards to himself and gave us a wonderful exposition of the complexity of his task, which understandably so, and in many ways, the general public understanding of Finance Commission is not as intense as it ought to have been, and he's making an effort to make sure that they understand. Constitutionally speaking, India is a union of states. But I think the way I would want to see the new economy, that's a federation of economies. We should stop seeing India as one economy. And this I'm saying from the perspective of businesses particularly. Don't see India as one large economy. India is 30 economies with 30 levels of skill endowments, resource endowments, and so on and so forth. And the center-state relations should now provide a framework for these 30 economies to work in tandem and bring in investments and growths and various things that were discussed just now. Because the first phase, the macroeconomic story, basic policy regime is in place. We now need to look at the action at the state levels. And the center-state framework needs to change to that, and I'll go further on.
I had no intention to interrupt, actually. I wanted you to have your say on the Finance Commission. But to say that we are 30 economies, is in this group of businessmen, I don't think anybody will agree. I don't think anyone can run any business within his state. Everybody will admit that their economy is India. I doubt, sir, there are 30 economies.
No, what I'm saying is see it as 30 economies with endowments and with positions and whatever, and policy regimes. The point I'm trying to make is states must have powers to policy flexibility. If they have to move from coercive federalism to cooperative federalism to competitive federalism. All I'm saying is that the institutions of federalism in India have evolved in response to a particular regime, which was of a closed economy, a controlled economy. We are now an open economy, a regulated economy. Nothing has changed. Earlier, private investment was driving growth, public investment was driving growth, and was used as a way for equalization. Today, it is private investment. Today, markets matter, natural resources matter. None of this is coming in the ambit of the center-state relations. We need to move to the next level. Today, I think we should move, its time has come, to move from a tax-sharing federalism to a resource-sharing federalism. India has to move from a union to a federation, stop short of being a confederation. I think that's where the design change has to come, and Finance Commission ought to drive it. Most interestingly, which Mr. Singh pointed out, we had a unconstitutional intruder in the federalism called Planning Commission, which was distortionary. The kind of things, that complexity that Mr. Singh was talking about, emanated from the Planning Commission, and we had this artificial between plan and non-plan, which has now got reversed. We are now looking at revenue and capital. So Finance Commission, 15th Finance Commission, very, very important role. We can come to terms of reference. I think that's really critical because that's been done. But there's enough statutory powers that the Finance Commission has to redesign, and that I think is the need for it, to redesign the framework of federalism in India, fiscal federalism.
Are you saying that they have the ability to change from sharing of taxes to sharing of resources?
Of course, there's nothing in the Constitution that prevents him. He's a statutory body. Planning Commission was not a statutory body. The only other federal institution which I think is more genuinely federal than Finance Commission, is the GST Council. They need to now work on, because they need to work in tandem and work it out. In the 10th Commission, I happen to be working with the 10th Commission, we changed the entire setup of sharing of taxes, because the Finance Commission is free to recommend, and we suggested an alternative model of 29%. Earlier it was limited to may share, shall share. There were all kinds of complications. We just avoided all that and said, let's put together a number, give 29% to states. That has gone to 42 now. And that was given as an alternative devolution scheme. Nothing prevents Mr. Singh from recommending that this is what you want me to do as per Constitution. However, obiter dicta, alternative, new federal scheme, this is what I want to do. I recommend to you, take a call. And that is how policy changes happen. And he has managed policy changes in 91. I mean, I know the team that was there. You know it. We've covered it as journalists. So he has the capability and the authority to do that. So I think it's at a point of time when we need to seriously go beyond the TORs of population and stuff. We need to take a bigger picture.
Let me get Dr. Biswas in, Dr. Sharma in. Mr. Sharma, your first reactions. I summarized to you what Dr. Singh said. What are your expectations from the Finance Commission?
You know what is the political power of a state, what is the political power of center. But economic relationship is still evolving. You have Schedule 7, List 1, List 2, List 3 is there. Now, health is a subject which falls within the state. Now, Karnataka is capable of launching a similar scheme like Ayushman Bharat, and the individual of Karnataka can access health insurance cover. Now, can state of Nagaland launch a health insurance scheme of that magnitude without center support? Now, the question is, we are talking state as a unit. Now, come to individual. A individual taxpayer of Nagaland or Assam, he is also paying the same amount which now Finance Commission is going to distribute. Now a taxpayer from Karnataka is also paying the same amount which Finance Commission will distribute. Now why inequality in their life? If people of Karnataka can access Ayushman Bharat, why Assam people will not access? Because I am paying same tax. Geographical boundaries doesn't matter. I am living in the same country. So don't you think that even in the state list, you need centrally sector scheme? Without PMGSY, will the state in northeastern region, Uttarakhand, would have at any point of time, would have access to a all-weather road? Probably answer is no. So it's very hard task, difficult task, and I believe that in India, relationship between state and center, List 1, List 2, List 3, all these needs a relook. For the first time, you have a Prime Minister who has worked as a Chief Minister of a state. Although we have Mr. Devagowda, but his position in PM was brief. But Mr. Modi has worked as a Chief Minister for a fairly long time. And we understand, we are confident that he will work as a Prime Minister for a fairly long time. So this is the time, I mean, there is a Prime Minister who knows the requirement of a state, who understands now requirement of a country. Because although securing country, defense, army, it looks like a mandate of a central government, but if you don't secure country, then how a state will prosper? How Jammu Kashmir can prosper if there is no army? So, or there is somebody who is securing sovereignty of the country. So this is a very critical function. You need to approach it from a very practical point of view, and I hope Mr. Singh is capable of doing that. But while I emphasize on this point that this is a very critical thing to do, but at the same time we must also see that states are not being deprived from their genuine resources. I'll come back to 14 Finance Commission. Now, 14 Finance Commission on paper, they have done a very good work for the states. It is believed to be so. But we have presented the facts before 15 Finance Commission day before yesterday that it was not like that. Because you have devolved us 42%, but you have shifted many central sector schemes to the state. And only day before yesterday, central government has said that your teachers whom you have appointed in compliance to right to education, henceforth will pay only 15,000. So earlier they were paying full. Now they said that we will pay only 15,000. Now result is state like Assam, my additional burden is 450 crore will be for these years. This is exactly the amount which the 10% fiscal space is going to be or it is mean for us. So I think this Finance Commission has to keep certain things very clear. What is the central sector scheme? Whether central government is allowed to change the goalpost in between. Now, if we are sharing the resource, now whether there will be common kitty where state will also contribute to the defense of the country. So there are certain things which this Finance Commission will have to address. And I am sure that in GST, we have shown the wisdom that when center and state can work together, we can produce some result which nobody was expecting. So I believe that Finance Commission should not only visit the state, the interaction should continue, and at some point of time, center and state should come face to face. I mean, it should not be like a Supreme Court judge that you hear both sides and then you announce a judgment. You should have your continuous interaction. At some point of time, bring Central Finance Department and State Finance face to face, discuss this issue, and try to actually create a new India where there will be no confrontation, no conflict between state and center, and it will be, the essence will be a cooperative federalism. And I have full faith on the new Finance Commission. We have just had GST in that spirit, and I think this Finance Commission will also perform in the spirit of the cooperative federalism, which we have just seen in evolution of GST.